Hey there. So I've made this little video for you to show you how to do proper flow control, eventing, use of switches, and conditions. So let's get started and get your start going. So when you're looking at this, the first thing to know about events is the trigger. The trigger is super important because it's going to choose the priority, how it's run, and what else is run in the background, if anything. An auto run trigger is going to be guaranteed your start of the game trigger. An auto run trigger is it starts to run the second the conditions are met. In this case, it has no conditions, so therefore it's going to run immediately. It's going to run and stop all other events from processing. It will stop the player from being able to do anything other than interact with the event, and it will be priority over any other event. So the big thing to remember is to not have two auto runs running at the same time. The system doesn't know how to prioritize them. The other thing to remember about auto runs is that they don't stop. So once it gets to the end of the process, it will continue it from the top. So it'll constantly loop over and over and over again. So on mine, what happens here is we're going to turn some switches on. We'll get to switches in a second, and variables. And it's going to show some text. It's going to wait 2 seconds. The wait command will always be based on frames, and it goes by 60 frames a second. It shows some more text. Gives the player a chance to input their name. That's one of the commands on there. It's located on page 3, name input processing. That will allow you to choose maximum number of characters allowed, the actor name, all that good stuff. And then it's going to go through some more text, and then it's going to turn another switch on. As I've indicated, it goes from top to bottom, processing every command individually. So it doesn't process the whole thing at once. It goes from start to finish. Now what happens here is if I didn't have this switch here, and I'll get to why that matters in a second, this would just loop continuously. They'd be constantly changing a name and never get anything done in the game. Events can have multiple pages. You can have all sorts of event pages, as many event pages as you could possibly need. I don't know why you need 16 event pages, but you can have them. The thing to understand about events and event pages is that when it's figuring out the conditions to decide if this is the event or this is the event that it's going to use, it goes by the highest number page first. So it would have gone from 16 to 15 to 14, so on and so forth. Once it finds a page where the conditions are met, it stops. It doesn't go to see if, so if page 2's condition is met, it's not going to see if page 1 is met. It'll be as if page 1 doesn't even exist anymore, because the conditions are met. So at the end of this, because I used the command control switches, which is on the first page right here, it made this condition met, and now it's going to use this event instead. This event is an event touch, so it's not going to just loop all the way through. It requires the player to actually touch the event in order to begin processing. Switches. There are two kinds of switches. You have global switches and self switches. A global switch you will define the name of, and it can work for any event. So if a global switch is on, any event that requires that switch to be on will be functioning. Also provided you're on the map with that event. Unless it's a common event, common events can run at any time that they're called. So with self switches only work for the event that they're a part of in question. So if I put on control self switch A is on, self switch A on another event will not be on. It will only be on for this event here. The reason why I use self switches over a global switch is you can only have a finite number of normal switches. Those are global switches, and it can get pretty confusing too, remembering what switch goes where. So it's always advisable, if a self switch would work, to use a self switch. In this case, choose character switch is going to activate several different events, so it's more practical to make it a global switch. So it runs through all of my commands, turns the switch on, and now this event is an event touch event with all of this stuff here. So what happened here is, what happens here now is, if I go to touch that event, it's going to start running through this. Notice I have label and jump to label. What that does is, as I said before, it goes from top to bottom. If you have a label command, you define the label. In this case, the label here is character creation. Whenever it makes it to the command jump to the label, it will immediately go to wherever that label is. It can go up, it can go down, wherever the label in this event is. Labels only work for the event that they're a part of. It will not run anything in between. So this is a way that you can skip around to parts of the event. Now you might be asking, why would you want to do that? Well, there's a lot of different reasons why you want to do that. I do it for choices, and I'll show you here in a second. If you look over here, I'm going to show you this choice first just because it's easier to look at. When this event pops up and the character clicks on it, it gives them a yes or no choice. The show choices command is the second command in on the first page, right there. And when you get show choices, you're only going to have 4. The new version gives you up to 6. You can choose what happens when the cancel button is pushed. You can choose what happens when, I'm sorry, not what happens. You can choose what the cursor's on first. So say you want it to be on no, just in case somebody's speed clicking through and you don't want them to accidentally pick something they didn't want. And then you can choose the positioning, where it's going to appear in the game, whether or not it has a background, stuff like that. Oop, I didn't actually want to do that. I created 2 choices. No. Okay, anyway. So with the choices here, it's only going to process the stuff in the event for the choice that was chosen, and then it's going to get out of the show choice command. So in this case, if you choose yes, it changes the actor's image, what they look like and whatnot, and then goes to the end. It skips everything under no. If you go to no, it skipped everything under yes, and there's nothing there, so it'll just immediately go to the end of the show choices command. I'm showing you on that one because this one's a bit long and tedious. So let's follow this along. Character creation, labeled. Show some text. Now here's the choice. They have the choice of choose name, choose appearance, or finish. If they choose name, I'm going to do name input processing again and then jump to label. The reason why I'm doing that is because once they've chosen their name, I want them to once again, are you satisfied with your choices, and to give them the option to choose name, choose appearance, or finish once more. So if they choose appearance, it's going to skip everything under choose name, give some text, and then it finishes, and then it's done. And the reason why is because once you choose appearance, if you recall, you walk to a character and click on it to choose your appearance. So when you finish this right here, the when choose appearance, it goes to the bottom of that show choices command. And there's nothing down there, so that means the character now is back under player control, and they can attempt to choose their model again. When finished, what it's going to do is it's going to show some text, and then you see another label. Well, you'll see why in a second. Now you get to choose your profession. There's 3 classes to choose from. If you say no, when you click on that, it's going to say, are you sure you wish to choose artisan? If you say no, it's going to jump back to class select. That way it doesn't go all the way to the top here, or you have to restart the event, what have you. It's got nice even flow. You can have choices within choices in that sense. So first you're going to pick, if you're good to go, you want to choose your appearance, you want to choose your name, and if you click finish, it's then going to ask you to choose your class. And then if you decide you don't want that class, so you have choices within choices. Fun fact, if you click on a command, it'll highlight the whole command for you. It's good for when you're paying attention to stuff. But that is flow control. Using those principles and those ideas, you can control the flow of events, how they run, and how they work. Common events, this is the last bit here, as I stated before. can be called or run at any time. A common event is either triggered by the common event command, which, just to kind of double click and show you, common event right here, and then you pick which common event, and that'll trigger the event to begin running. You can have it as an auto run, and if you have it as an auto run, you then pick which switch needs to be turned on for that auto run to begin. Then you have parallel process. A parallel process runs at the same time as everything else. It runs in the background. Parallel processes are pretty awesome because you can do things like my timing script here. Because when global time is turned on, and if you recall that was a switch that's turned on by my initial event, it'll constantly do this, where it'll wait a second, add to the variable minute. If there's 60 of those, add to the variable hour and bring minutes back to 0. If there's 24 of those, add to the variable day, bring hours back to 0. So because of that, that's always running, and there's always time, and therefore it's always being timed. And that's it. That's flow control. That is how to get your events to do what you want, when you want, and how you want. That should get you set up and everything you need. If you have any questions about specific commands, just shoot me a message. Have fun!